Testing. Secure your Elixir apps with Paraxial IO. From code analysis and bot defense to dependency checks, they've got you covered. Elixir first design with GitHub integration. Elevate your security at Paraxial.io. What's up, guys? I'm Jacob Blitzo, your Elixir Mentor, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Elixir Mentor Podcast. This is where we discuss everything related to Elixir, from interviews with enthusiasts, pioneers in the community, to innovative projects and libraries shaping Elixir's future. Today, I'm excited to welcome Parker and Shannon Selbert, the creators of Oban, a powerful background job processing system for Elixir. Parker, Shannon, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Very.
Yeah, I think this will be a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and just kick this off with a little bit about yourselves, and you guys can decide who goes first, but let's talk about what got you into software development.
I'm a wise married man, so I know who goes first.
What? Oh, that's a ploy. But all right, so I started at home like a lot of people. I had an uncle who went to a CS program in Anchorage, Alaska in the early 80s. That probably dates me a little bit, but I was a small child then. I started my first job at a company that was doing what I would call outsourced consumer experience, which is a really nice way of saying heavy ladling of hot telemarketing. So I had access to fantastic technology at a time when most people had dial-up at home. And I had somebody take a chance on me when I was really just a kid on IRC messing around. That was my start.
I don't know exactly where I started. I was in school for furniture design, and I had been doing 3D modeling for a long time and wanted to automate some things and build a portfolio, and ended up learning ActionScript, and then moved from where I was going to school in Savannah to Chicago, and didn't have internet for a month. And around that time, I had kind of made friends with a Polish developer who was all into Perl. And so I got a copy of the Perl book, the Campbell book, for anybody who's done Perl before, and spent a month with no internet writing some Perl. So that's kind of where I got started.
Books were an important part. We sound, you kids need those books, but now you have an Elixir Mentor. But the books were where it all began for us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still stuck on reading the books. I feel like books and documentation are pretty important in our line of work.
Well, the great thing about a book is you're not going to get any notifications when you look at it. I mean, if you put the phone away or you put the laptop away, you're not looking at a screen. There's no distraction. It's just you and a piece of paper, right? So
yeah, my problem is that phone just automatically gets picked up, and then you start scrolling Twitter or Instagram. Got to put it in the other room.
Totally.
Yeah, we've had to do the opposite. We force ourselves to pick the phone up to do the opposite side.
Oh man,
we're more
teach me.
inclined to put the blinders on. I don't think we can. I think our kids hate us for it. So I'm willing to employ methods of fire, some wax. I don't know what you need, but
I mean, I don't want to kind of jump ahead, but the fact that so many of the people that we interact with in the Elixir community or around Oban are in Europe kind of has changed what we notifications, because you start getting emails for Chicago time, 2:00 in the morning, whatever it is. And that is not when you want notifications.
Yeah.
So it's to turn the stuff off.
And I'm the naughty one. I don't turn them off. He turns his notifications off, but I don't. So I'm the bear shaking the tree.
Well, so like what's funny is I have all notifications turned off. I'll only use badges, but I feel like you're so addicted to picking up your phone, you check it so much, you're like, oh, a new badge. And then only a handful of people get text noises because I don't actually like to know when people text me.
That's some serious credibility for Ashton on the Elixir forum. He's like, oh, badges are working, psychological.
There's a CEO that I worked with who refers to it as checking the crab traps. Like, just you just want to go control all your little spots to see if you have a new notification. And it's like being a fisherman. See what you caught.
Yeah, that's funny. Now I don't want to check
Checking
my
the
phone
crap.
ever. I need more self-control. So before you guys discovered Elixir, what were languages that you were building in, and what did your professional life look like?
Well, I mentioned Perl and ActionScript before. Nothing really professional with Perl, but
Action script for sure.
yeah, initially, yeah, we were doing, like, even when we started our business together back in 2008, we were doing work for Whirlpool and other companies like that, and we were doing like interactive demos, which is where the ActionScript stuff kind of came in. But after that, it was a lot of Ruby.
So we have our refrigerator. We should get a new refrigerator, but the first UI that we designed together that we coded is in our kitchen. And it triggers me a bit because I was pregnant and we were mixing Piastro sounds to have the notifications of like automatic fill or all of those things. So it triggers me a little bit because our second child, I was expecting our second child while we were working on that project. So we should get a new fridge, but I'm weirdly attached to it.
It is not a magnificent UI. But it works. It's a good reminder.
But it's ours.
Yeah, that's all that matters, right? I won't ever brag about my UI skills. Usually I steal other people's great UI skills and I'm like, oh, I like how that looks.
That's art though. That's just what art is.
Stealing.
When you get it, yeah.
Stealing and combining. Stealing.
Oh,
and
there you go.
remixing.
Say stealing. That's not
Well,
respectable.
Sure.
I feel like there's a
Thievery.
book that I read, like Steal Like a Artist or something. I don't remember when I read it, but it's something like that. I don't know if that's the actual.
Great artists steal, I think, is part of the quote there.
Let me see. Steal Like an Artist. I think it's a book. Yeah, Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. It's a short book, but it's a good read. Now I need to reread it because I only remember portions of it. But it's pretty much like, yeah, you take an idea and just turn it into your own. Like reinvent a wheel, just make it a little better, right?
There are no new ideas. It's all just subtly tweaking and combining other ideas.
Yeah.
Pretty much in every modality. I think that's business 101.
Yeah. Food, culture, business, art, music, code.
Yeah.
Works everywhere, but in the legal forum.
This
That's
is
the
true.
disclaimer.
So how you guys have been in the Elixir space, I feel like, for quite a while. What brought it on your radar?
You posted about it.
I did. So in a way, it was forced on Shannon, but it was sort of inspired to me by Shannon years ago before Elixir was a thing.
Oh, because of Erlang.
Because of Erlang. And she had learned about it and was interested in it. And then I read a little bit of Joe Armstrong's book, and I didn't have anywhere to actually apply Erlang. And then today, just before this, we posted about, like, just looking back, there was a blog post by Tony Arcieri, who was into cryptography and part of the Ruby community. And he had been working on an object-oriented Erlang framework called Rhea. And he posted that he was no longer going to be working on it because there was a new one by this guy, Jose Valim, who had made one called Elixir. And so this is in 2011, and that's about where I learned about it. I don't think I had tried to experiment with it until the next year and doing like Project Euler stuff. But the ideas were beautiful. It was a way to kind of get the foot in on using Erlang, and just kind of kept going from that.
I love that. Yeah, I kind of accidentally started using Elixir before I really understood the power behind like the Beam VM and like all the awesome things you kind of get out of the box with concurrency and all that great stuff. I just started using it and I kind of just loved the syntax, and then I started understanding all the great things like gen servers, tasks, whatever, you name it. And then I fell in love.
Yeah. I think that's totally legitimate that you fall in love with the sugar and then find out, oh, this is actually really nutritional too.
Yeah.
There's more to it.
Well, like I think like
That's rare.
what started it, I started just kind of like building it for a project because I knew the capabilities of it, but I don't know if I really grasped what they meant. And I started building a project and I didn't use any of the fancy things. Like I kind of was trying to force like object-oriented programming methodology into a functional paradigm. So like I rewrote a lot of work as I was learning Elixir because I would be like, I can't believe I wrote code this way. And so I'd go back and fix it and fix it. And then 3 years into it, I finally started feeling comfortable. And I was like, I could save a lot of people all the headaches I went through for 3 years if I just started a YouTube channel and made some tutorials. And that's kind of what sprung Elixir Mentor.
We have personal reference that it's used and loved. We started a project called an Elixir Quest not too long ago. It was in August. And one of our questees, what do we refer to them as? One of our participants has
Players.
Eduardo has spoken very highly of your YouTube channel and of your videos that were posted and how it's defining for him learning Elixir. And we're really pleased that it's available. I think it would have changed how we would have learned Elixir as well. So I think it's a marvelous resource for people.
That's awesome.
I think I would possibly have to be of a different generation to skew towards video over reading, though. But it does seem like that is much more popular. Like for our daughter, who's 23, she really appreciates video content.
Hey,
like
we
what
don't
you're
have a 23-year-old. We're just two kids coding on love in a van, roaming the earth. I don't have a 23-year-old.
Yeah,
walking
no
around
way.
a botanical garden in Edinburgh.
I'm at three-year-old. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, I love that. So like Parker, I'm kind of with you. I had to be in a special mood to learn through video because I get too impatient. And I'm just like, all right, just jump to the good stuff, what I want to learn. Like normally when I'm researching or looking things up, it's like a specific need, right? I'm having an issue implementing a library or doing something. And so I want to find that specific thing right away. And so I don't have a lot of patience to watch a whole video. But here I am, I make videos for people.
There you are.
I think it's a great resource. It's inspiring to us. We are considering, well, we'll share that in the news side, but we're considering some things inspired by what you've put out there in relation to Oban. And I think it's a marvelous resource. I think I would have picked up things. I would have felt more confident as opposed to approaching somebody who is a technological dictator in my home.
I'm not a dictator. It's a duopoly.
It's an authoritarian society. It's authoritarianism.
So I find you two fascinating for two reasons. One, there aren't a lot of women in the tech space. Obviously, it's growing. And then when you actually have like a couple together that you're working on a live project and developing together, how does like collaborating and even beginning to work together, how does that work between you two?
Well, you can see him. Anyone who can see him, I just want to make a claim for the dictatorship. He looks marvelous in hats, right? That's the first sign of a good dictator.
Helps with confidence wearing the hat.
So
You're saying I look like Castro? Is that
no,
what you're
not at all. It's a very Italian vibe.
Yeah, it's true. More Italian. I don't know. I get to work with my best friend. It's very exciting. I said this morning, she's like, "You're all excited about doing the live stream today. You're not nervous?" It's like, no, I get to talk about like my favorite thing with my favorite person. This is a good combination.
And I do what I do, which was say, "Oh yeah, you do love Jacob, don't you?"
Aw. This is so awesome. No, I love all this attention. You know what's funny is
so she deflected.
I do deflect. Humor is a very important part of our life. It's how we both value it. I think the other thing is silent. It sounds silly, but we both love silent coordination. That ability to do things and move through space, whether it's digital or in our physical life, and work together and coordinate without having a lot of discord. We have our disagreements, but how we address them means everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think like any
But
good team, you kind of have to have that method at least, right? If you can't have an argument civilly and have a solution, you're not going to have a very successful team.
And for the longest time, I wasn't a female in the digital space, in the sense that I didn't take on a female name. I wouldn't use a female icon. I wouldn't use pictures of myself, especially
not for work, but just
not
in
for
like an
work.
online presence.
And in an online presence, if I was playing a game, if I was doing anything like that, I just decided not to engage on that level. I don't have any baggage on it. I just didn't want that attention. That wasn't what I wanted. He's pretty adamant that I don't stay in the background.
I am firm about not staying in the background. Like, we are a partnership. That's what we need to convey. There is a woman that is involved in all of this and should be front and center, and people should see that. And I'm hoping kind of be inspired and entertained and enjoy that collaborative side. But that's the reality that we have to show.
Yeah, I think
I'm often more comfortable in the back.
I think it's awesome that you're both out there and you're both working on a very large project together. And I think, it is cool. I don't think I've ever dated a female software developer. So I think it's something special. I don't know. It's cool. So when you're working on projects, do you guys have your different strengths and weaknesses? How do you break up tasks? What needs to be done? And how do you kind of move forward when you add features to, Oban, for example?
We definitely have our different strengths and expertise and things. And I think we tend to break along those lines or just focus. I mean, we have a life going around this as well. So we have to, just like you would split up your daily kind of,
I would say lists.
Lists do help.
The noun is lists. We have copious lists. We have lists for work. That doesn't mean that we're always racing, but he especially loves when all the boxes for the list are checked.
Oh yeah.
Very excited about it.
I'm a checkboxer myself.
Yeah, and I do enjoy it, but I like the feeling of being organized, and he's open to me reprioritizing things that we work on, whether it's in Oban or in our home life. He's pretty open to me reprioritizing things. And that's where, but architecturally, again with the hat, I mean, I would not take him to task on big architectural decisions. I think I'm very comfortable reviewing, and he is very comfortable leading in that regard. I mean, I had to catch up to so much that he learned ahead of me, that I feel confident in decisions that we need to make as far as our users are involved, or pricing, but when it comes to how we're actually structuring the architecture of how Oban works, Parker is definitely, he's lead on the horse for that.
But I do have to point out that building is kind of the fun part and what leads you along. But the most important part, I think, of the longevity of a project, and definitely for Oban, is actually support and helping people in the community. And that is such an overwhelming part of our day, that ends up being something that we split up even more between emails and Slack and all these other things.
Is it just the two of you between development and support?
Yes.
Yeah. So if I know he's busy and he's engaged and somebody can't deploy, this is definitely an issue. And although there is a benefit to this, right? We both understand that what we built and how we depend on them for our life, they depend on us to deploy. We don't want to be somebody's pain point. So we make every effort to help as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I love that. Are you guys familiar with who Planet Zoodle is? Because they said hello, parents, on the chat.
No, hello, Planet Zoodle. I don't know you, but maybe I do.
I mean, we have kids. Maybe it's that
Oh,
3-year-old from before. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
what one of our many other.
You
We
better
only have
control
3
that screen time with a 3-year-old. Jeez.
Yeah.
3-year-olds, they love zoodles, though, as you know.
Yeah.
We do have 2 children that work at zoos. So 2 out of our 3 work at a zoo. So
It's a good chance.
good
That's
chance.
awesome. I love
I
that. So why don't we talk about Oban a little bit? Do you want to tell us what it is for the listeners that don't know? I feel like if you're in the Elixir space, everyone knows what Oban is, but you might as well let everyone know what, the definition by the creators is the best way to go.
We have different ways.
I think I'm terrible at defining it and explaining it.
Well, you're often trying to do it to our neighbors.
Yes, especially
really,
neighbors or parents or whatever.
Who believe half the time we don't have a job. So they see us in various swimwear arrangements with cover. We're carrying laptops around. We're on our way here and there. So I always describe it as a robust background job processor that was written in Elixir. I kind of keep it without going into, Postgres and all of that. I don't really get into it. I often have to give our Chow Mojo training, exotic pet delivery on the DoorDash kind of model of what background job processing does. I'm often just kind of building up background job processing is important. And then they'll branch into, well, who are your customers? And I explain, developers are primarily our customers, and it's a dev tool set that we really just love to make their life easier. That's who we are. That's what we work for.
So if I was going to explain it to somebody who understands some of Elixir, but isn't familiar with Oban, I would say it builds on what tasks give you, which is async execution. And it gives you persistence and retries and introspection and all of these other bits that are actually really crucial when you're trying to write something in production and you care about the effects. Because background jobs are always about side effects. It's so you could use parallelism in Elixir to just compute a bunch of things, and that's ephemeral, and you want to bring it back together, and that is very functional. But you still care about whatever the output happens to be.
And then I tell the mom next door, you want transactional safety.
Yes.
You want that, right, girl? No, I don't do that.
And there's transactional safety. Hence the Postgres or the SQL side of things. Yes, that too. And then you get backups and all these other things.
Yeah, I never I do admit I have not used it yet, but it's on my list because I actually have some features on.
Stream's over.
Yeah. But it's on my list, and I'm excited to use it because I have some features that I'm implementing in a web hosting platform that I'm building, and there's a lot of background tasks and scheduling that I need to do. And I'm guessing, like, before you started building out your system, what were you using before? Were you just kind of writing gen servers and just implementing a more like rudimentary
You wrote one for us.
Yeah, so before Oban, we used Kick, and Kick was, if anybody's familiar with the Ruby library of Sidekick, it was like an Elixir adaptation of Sidekick, but not just Sidekick, the open source project, Pro, and a little bit of the enterprise features for parity. And that showed, one, that it was actually very complex, and I learned a lot of what worked and what didn't work. And building on Redis, which is what Sidekick and then Kick was based on, didn't work very well. It's very performant and really easy to set up and scale.
Kick is still a great choice if you're adopting Elixir and you're moving from Ruby.
That's fair.
You're not supposed to say that when we're talking about Oban. No.
I know.
Look, I'm honest. It is. It's a good, but it.
There's nothing out there. You need to use Oban. Nothing compares, right?
That's the answer that we want to give people.
Well, we don't operate in a vacuum.
No, not at all.
And I don't fear that because we stay ahead. I mean, we really do live and work and breathe it, and we stay ahead.
Yeah. So, but in addition to Kik, we would not so much gen servers, I guess, for some things, like where you would end up using a cron job in Oban, maybe write a custom gen server,
Okay.
or where you just do something kind of async in like a fire and forget kind of way, maybe use a task. But then those are not necessarily things that you want to forget. Like if your email client goes down or you have a network issue, you still want to send it. You just want to have the retry. So
Yeah,
there were other things before.
Yeah, I feel like
The
that's
retry
really
is important.
Yeah, that's a really nice built-in feature then, because a lot of times you don't know if your tasks failed or haven't run, right? Well, at least it's difficult if you're trying to implement it on your own.
Yeah, I mean, you can use just task start and then you have no idea whatever happened, or you could do async and then you're linked and now you've got a crash, and that's not necessarily what you want. So there are totally ways around that with Elixir and OTP and all that, but sometimes conceptually it's better to just transactionally insert something and just be assured that it's going to happen later.
Or use Oban Web and watch it.
That too.
You want to explain Oban Web a little bit for us?
Yes. Do you?
I would love to. Oban Web is what we thought was going to be what monetized really Oban Pro plus Web.
But before Pro, you're jumping ahead.
That's really where we thought we were going to go and place everything. The observability of it is unprecedented.
But it's a Phoenix live view dashboard that lets you interact, so you can monitor, control, inspect your jobs. You can cancel things, you can see what's running, you can do filtering, and you can actually see the jobs that are running and the queue time, and you can manipulate queues, you can pause them, add global limits, rate limits, change the concurrency, and you can do all of that through a web dashboard.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's very convenient. All right. So let's see. What made you validate the need for even creating a job processing system? You just weren't happy with Kik, you weren't happy with other options out there, or was it strictly you just wanted to build something in Elixir?
No, I mean, I could say I had already built plenty of things in Elixir, but other things didn't.
When you make that list on the chalkboard and you see the optimizations that you want, it makes sense to expand.
Yeah, so
It's scratching
there
many
were
itches.
some job processors in Elixir that were even Postgres based, but they lacked a lot of the features or the foundation that we would want to build something on. This is at a time when telemetry was kind of new, and the ability to actually have introspection about everything that was happening, like when it's fetching jobs, when it's staging jobs, what's the execution time, all that was really important. And then one of the big things that you end up doing, even by yourself, but especially in a bigger team, is you really want to know when a job ran, or that it ran, or
if it failed.
It failed the first 2 times, but it finished on the 3rd. And so one of the kind of innovations of Oban is that it didn't just delete the jobs afterwards. It actually, they stay around even after they've completed. So you can go back and look through and see, oh, well, yesterday this is what ran, and I can find that the thing with these arguments for this worker that ran, and you can have some confirmation.
Nice. Yeah. Confirmation, having logs, just knowing what's happening on your system is super beneficial. I love that. What made you choose? I think I know the answer to the first part because it's kind of was the first supported database, but what made you choose Postgres as your main persistent database? And then later you added SQLite, right?
Yeah. Postgres does the work for you a lot of the time.
I think it's just kind of amazing, but it's also used in 85% of Elixir applications. Yeah. So if you're going to choose, if you want one, let alone it's the one that we use for everything for a long time.
It has great support for defining custom functions too.
That was actually really helpful. up front. And kind of support it. Adding SQLite was mostly so that it could be used in, not for web applications, but on independent, not exactly like IoT kind of devices, but smaller things.
Okay.
And as we've discovered more recently, adding support for MySQL to do exactly what we want to do is a major pain in the butt. So it was a good choice.
Yeah. So, did you just, what, is that a pretty new thing, trying to implement MySQL, or what happened there?
Yeah, it's pretty new. Yeah. So we have what we call expansion, like project expansion. So part of project expansion.
When you say it aloud, it doesn't sound as cool as we thought it did.
I wish I had
Project.
like a cool like theme music
Condor
that I
expansion.
I need a button for
Yeah,
cool
what if it
theme
was?
music. So when you're like project expansion,
I felt like it sounded so much better when we were talking in our little tunnel, but we need a cooler name. Project Rhododendron.
oh,
like- Oh, but scary.
Scary?
I mean, I don't know. Project expansion is what it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, one is to get more people in Elixir able to use Oban, but then the other part is to actually make it easier for people who are outside of Elixir to come and start using Elixir. So if you have, say, a Django app in Python or a Rails app in Ruby, and you're using MySQL, and you want to migrate to Elixir, we would love it for you to be able to come and use Oban as part of your migration.
That's
Mhm.
not hubris. That's part of the dream.
That is the dream.
That is the dream, to lure people to Elixir.
To have Oban be a killer app in Elixir, which is already full of so many killer apps that it's kind of it's a crowded space.
It is. But we're working towards that. Project expansion.
I love it.
Rhododendron.
So we want it to be possible, even though there's, I think only 10% of, I'm going by hex metrics for this. Only 10% use MySQL, but we just want people to actually have that as a viable choice if they want to come and be able to do that.
Yeah, obviously the more databases you support, the more attractive it is to everyone, right? It makes sense.
Yeah.
We have a question from Richard. He says, what should new users to Oban consider before installing it, as far as like infrastructure complexity and application dependency maintenance, in your opinion, and what are the largest hurdles?
Well, we don't get a peek at Richard's system. So I would say read the guides and don't overuse unique jobs to just start with.
Just going all in.
I'm going all in with that because I
Yeah.
feel like that could be intense. But we did make our training that we developed open source. So we can send you the link to that. I know we've posted about it.
Yes, which applies to you too, Jacob. Like if you've never used it, there's Oban training, which is open source. It's all in Livebook. All you actually need is Postgres
Awesome.
running on your system and Livebook running, and you can go through and it'll walk through it's every corner of the features that are in Oban, so you'll have a good understanding of what's possible.
So use the training, read the guides,
But
ask questions on the Elixir forum. People are helpful. They're there.
but if you're adopting it into your system, especially if you're starting out, there's not much you have to think about for scale. Like you should be able to just follow the installation instructions and have queues running.
Right.
And you won't have to worry about anything with scale for a very long time,
But we have a scaling guide now.
which is also based on a talk that we did. So there is a
So-
scaling guide.
When you get there, start with the plan to scale, but definitely keep the scaling guide close at hand.
Yeah, I always
sure
think. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sure there are people out there who's like, I ran into problems scaling, but it's a full featured kind of system where there are all sorts of situations you can get yourself into. So
People make decisions.
sorry to anybody who had problems scaling, but it should get pretty readily to tens of millions of jobs a day. No problem.
Yeah. Well, also, I think a lot of people pre-optimize or prematurely try to optimize for scaling when they don't have to worry about it. Like a lot of
This is
times
true.
you got quite a bit of time to figure things out. Like, don't ignore it completely, but you don't have to necessarily have your plan in action already.
Yeah. But it's in usually your primary database. You can put it in a secondary database, but it is in your primary database. So don't try to go for some, shared under power 1 vCPU, 2 gigs of RAM kind of instance. That's not going to scale very well for a background job system. But
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. How would it work in like a multi-tenant situation?
do you mean, because you can have as many different Oban instances running, or you can actually have you can have multiple databases, or you can have uses prefixes, or they're called schemas in Postgres. And so, for example, the Oban Pro website, which runs the web demo, the web demo itself is using like the public table, and those are all just fake generated jobs. But then we also have another instance running, and that is a private instance where we run the actual businessy things, and those just run alongside each other.
Okay.
So
nice.
I guess that is multi-tenant that works.
Okay.
I think that's great.
No, that's cool. Let's see what I'm just looking through my list of questions here.
I didn't know there was like a live chat feature.
Yeah,
well,
we didn't know they could just send in questions like that. It's
That's
just
fun.
like YouTube.
We're learning.
Well, it's just YouTube chat, or we're live on X, Twitch, and YouTube, so anyone can chat during our conversation. Lots of people are just hellos, but and hello parents, which is your 3-year-old for sure.
Yeah, if we get more than 3 of those, then we have to be
Yeah,
concerned.
I say they sit on a thorn of lies. There are only 3 that have been put out into the world. So there you go.
When you first started building Oban, what were some of your early technical challenges that you ran into that might have scared you away and maybe thought that you can't build what you want to build?
I don't think that happened. I hate to be rude about that.
Yeah,
to really dive
it's so
into that
rude
one.
that it didn't happen. I can't believe that.
No. I feel like we approach problems. It's not unusual for us to marinate for a few days on something.
I think so. Oban originally started actually with a Redis background. It was trying to use Redis streams,
Right.
which was a newer Redis feature that's made to work like Kafka streams.
Okay.
But you could have a single Redis instance instead of 3 Kafkas and all of the ceremony that takes. And there were problems actually modeling that because you couldn't co-locate like scheduled jobs and regular jobs or have retries. So that was probably one of the first stumbling blocks. But I think the biggest the technical challenges came after people started actually using it, because it was sort of easy to just say, oh, there's skip locked when you're selecting jobs, and that just kind of works. Well, it turns out that doesn't just actually work.
It doesn't.
You have to have other sort of criteria around it and do little guards. And so I think most of the trickiness came from real world.
Right.
You inhaled. I thought you were going to say something.
No, I think you're right. That is what drives a lot. I mean, we have healthy respect for people who are using it, testing it, and that started right in the beginning.
Yeah.
I feel like you run into very interesting problems when you first take things to production and start having real users. You always find those extra edge cases really quickly, don't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and also it's a library. It's not just an application, or it's not even like putting something in your own application. You have no control over what somebody's resources are like. Like how many nodes are they going to run? What's their database going to be like? How many queues did they decide to start? Things like that.
Getting to the bottom of what really is wrong takes more time until you really figure out how to create the docs, which are so important for people to reference, but they don't always reference them. So that's why we mention it all the time.
I tell people all the time to read documentation. I need to be better at pulling up documentation, I think, in my tutorials so people know that's what I do as I create them, because it's just healthy practice to check the docs. And it's sad when documentation sucks though, and you're kind of just stuck, and then you have to just look through source code and try to figure it out.
Yeah, that's true. We, at least, hopefully the source code's readable enough for you to figure it out. But
Yeah.
Shannon should actually have a shirt that just says "read the docs." It's a mantra, really.
I think between that and me trying to lure Andrea Leopardi to do more work on our open source docs, between those two things, just laying us like a golden trail, those are the two shirts I want to wear for the next month. I believe that is going to be best.
Andrea is aware that this trail is being laid.
Yeah,
It's
he's
not-
aware
this
that
is not a
I
surprise.
really want this.
I think you should do it. You have to. So can you explain the difference between Oban Web and Oban Pro? Like, Pro is kind of your enterprise licensed use case, right? That's what you have to pay for, or am I off on that?
Yes, it is licensed. It's not always enterprise, because we do have an enterprise offering.
Oh, okay.
That's how I would differentiate it.
Yeah. So web is a paid package, like which we explained before, and Pro is also a paid package. But Pro doesn't offer you a dashboard. It just offers a lot more functionality that builds on top of Oban.
Okay.
An alternate engine that has global limits and rate limiting and a different mechanism for uniqueness, and then all of these different plugins, and then different work styles so you can compose jobs together.
It's an extensive amount of plugins that go on top of it.
Gotcha.
And
I'm always curious on, like, obviously, like software businesses, right? Where you offer, all these different tiers, and how do you decide what belongs in what tier, and like what's web, what's pro, what's on your free tier? How do you kind of decide what features are worth paying for and what should be offered for free or whatever you're using?
So you can't ever roll anything back, right? What you make open source, you really, well, I guess some companies have recently, and that's created. So for us, trust was very important. And if you can build on top of the open source yourself, and you can create the plugins or the features you want, anything that we do with our time and our efforts, that goes into pro or web, which we'll talk more about in a second. But because those two will be differentiated more in the future. But for pro, especially, if you can build it and it takes time and it's something we're putting our efforts into that's feature based or optimizations, that's what we're choosing to monetize.
We definitely put lots of effort into the open source, but
For sure.
usually it's to enable something that's not possible.
It's critical.
So if it's possible to extend the open source one in a way to build something else, then that can go in pro.
So
If
we've
it's something
taken our
that
time.
as a growing business or a more advanced business you would want, then it goes into pro. But if it's good for getting started, or it's fundamental to be able to do something, or for us to even be able to build on top of it, then it goes in open source.
Yeah, I think, like, especially in the software world, every developer wants free libraries and frameworks, right? And finding that balance of how you can make money, and because obviously we all need to make money with our day jobs, right? And finding that fine line of how you can continue, building an awesome platform or framework and make money while doing it is the best of both worlds.
Time is finite. It's the only thing that we really can't create more of. So for us to dedicate our time to it, sponsorship, sure, that's one thing we considered. However, sponsorship is different, right? Everything, the dynamic pricing of your time is not sustainable because we're a community of people in different geographical places with different needs. And greed aside, right? We want to be altruistic by nature and repair the ecosystem and the environment that we're in. That's very important to us. So giving back is something we prioritize, but our time is finite. And we don't want to give something away gratis and then have to scale that back and charge for it. So we're careful about how we build those features and those optimizations into our monetized products.
I saw a quote from Ben Wilson of Absinthe sort of fame a little while ago, where somebody was asking about, and I wasn't involved in this conversation at all. They were asking why there's monetization involved. And he said, Oban itself wouldn't have half the features it did if there weren't people to work on it full time. And they can't work on something full time if they can't feed their family. Mm-hmm. And I think that applies in our situation, but I encourage people every chance I get that they should try to have a monetized product. It's an incentive to keep going on something. You're not going to drop some project that is part of your livelihood. You're there to fix the issues and help people and address things because it's part of your life. You're not just going to decide you're bored and move on.
No,
yeah.
I would love to sell cameos of Parker in like little Tom Selleck shorts.
You're going to make people...
Where's the link? How do I do this? Where's the link?
To sell that. I'm saying we should offer that as a giveaway. You get some swag and a cameo from Parker and a Tom Selleck pair of shorts.
A timeout though. One request though. You need the Tom Selleck mustache too.
I'm willing to glue this thing on. I've never seen it.
That's why I can't be a tech influencer streamer. I don't have a mustache. So
I don't have one either, and I'm not going to put the effort into that, man.
Yeah, you like Theo or Primogen, you got to have the big, thick, bushy mustache going on. Maybe I should just
that just
grow
won't
mine.
Pay the bills. I'm just saying it won't pay the bills.
Yeah.
As good as you look in those shorts, it doesn't pay the bills, honey.
I don't know. You haven't tried it. You can't knock it before you try it.
That's true.
That's true.
I've got a hunch.
We'll leave that. We'll do that to be considered.
Now, I'm curious. When you first started developing Oban, did you have your monetization structure kind of in mind, or did you figure it out after you started having a product?
Structured, no, but that it would be monetized, yes.
So
we did a combination. Yeah, we did. I think even now we have tier-based, value-based.
Well, and the pricing changed from when we launched into later, like where it is now. But from the very first announcement, like there was a screenshot of the web dashboard, and we planned on having web be like the thing that was the paid part to help support it.
That makes sense. Well, like just having a nice dashboard and good UI, UX to see everything that's happening. So all your processes, your schedules, your tasks, whatever it may be, that is a nice feature, especially if you don't want to just live in a terminal all day, which I kind of do.
It's gratifying.
Yeah.
It's gratifying.
It is. But it was pretty clear that as more people were using Oban and then we were helping people, the more complex, like advanced kind of use cases, like workflows and batches and chunking, like all of these things that we have now, people were asking, how do I do this? How do I build this? And like Shannon was saying before, selling your time to sort of consult with somebody is one thing, but trying to actually build something so that everybody can use it is just a much better use of time.
Yeah. Are there any like interesting use cases from companies that use Oban that you didn't necessarily really think about until they started using it?
I think the safest ones too.
The whale of a tail thing.
Oh, David Bruneisel was an amazing whale. He was
So at ElixirConf US, we were sponsors, but we also did like a submission-based thing where we wanted people to send in their like big fish stories, which we called a whale of a tail. But because of the unfortunate naming and the Twitter history, everybody thought that meant they were like failures or where something had broken down.
Nobody wanted to put themselves out there to tell some white whale story on how they essentially effed up using Oban, which isn't really what we wanted. We wanted something more along the lines of, the German Postal Service uses Oban. The Norwegian Postal Service uses Oban. These are and they use it as if they're one application because they're going towards this common goal with it and everything's internal. And so they've customized it in a way that is interesting and helps them maintain the German and Norwegian Postal Service.
So we did get some interesting answers there, but we have customers in all different sectors. There's so like postal service, energy management, finance, AI, video processing, like there's pretty much everywhere. Elixir can do a lot, and that really shows in the people that are using it. And we don't always know exactly how they're using it, but we do get fairly entertaining issues reported. Like we have 25,000 cron jobs and we're running into this performance thing. You're like, you have 25,000 unique cron schedules. And so essentially like every customer had their own cron schedule. People running workflows that were 100,000 jobs deep. And it's like, it's really starting to cause a problem. And so
you think?
we've tried to optimize so that all of these things are possible. It's just when you're designing something, you have no idea how people are going to use it or how far they're going to push it.
Yeah,
and how you get them off the ledge.
Yeah.
Now,
step away from
how
the
do you fly in with a helicopter and be like, don't jump, just wait.
So now in those situations, is it more education for your customer to optimize Oban better or implement it in a more optimized, performant way? Or is it you adapting Oban to be used in their use cases?
It's been both.
It's definitely both. In some cases, you probably shouldn't have one queue per customer. You're better off using queue partitioning, or dynamic queues, and starting and stop. So that's a little bit of educating or teaching, and that's that's the good support work because you're just kind of helping somebody. Mm-hmm. But on the other side, it's kind of a performance bug, and there's something to really fix here.
Now, do you get a lot of feedback that kind of helps shape your development and roadmap? Or do you kind of know what your roadmap looks like and where you want to take things?
Also both. So we have a roadmap and priorities, but people who are pro or web and pro or Met customers, I guess I would use the word respect. We respect, we consider,
we prioritize,
we look back, then we prioritize it. They don't have authority on how Oban is developed, but we respect it.
It does, yeah. There is a nudge there, like the recent stuff of adding support for Cockroach and what Yugabyte is that?
Which was fantastic. I think anytime we can incorporate a database like
we wouldn't have
Cockroach.
chosen to do that ourselves, though. That was encouraged by.
So that was from a customer, and that was a fantastic optimization. We know that Cockroach has a lot of customers, and opening that up was good mutually for the two of us. So that became a priority.
Yeah.
Nice. And that's something you wouldn't have thought of without a little bit of feedback, right?
Right.
So,
feedback we're everywhere. We're definitely receiving feedback.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not.
Absolutely.
We usually like it. We mostly get very good feedback.
Usually like it. And when we don't, there's just two of us. So the trash talk is needlessly complicated and kept between two people.
Yeah. But we don't get emails that just say like, this sucks, I'm canceling. I mean, that would be a really bad day.
That would be a bad day.
Well, but also it could be a good learning experience. If you're getting emails like that, it means you got to fix something in your product. And it's good that you're not getting emails like that.
It's true.
It's true. And I
Yes.
think when you do first monetize your product in the beginning, that is your ultimate fear, is that you will scare people off. And have you structured it correctly? Because not every developer who is going to try to monetize their product has been to any sort of a business class or a business management class, even though the resources, even within the podcast community within Elixir, has done so much. Yours, the changelog, people put so much of an effort and education on that. So you're still not functioning with the highest level of business acumen. You're coming from a developer standpoint, and your fear of somebody just chucking your dependency and moving on and finding something else is real.
True.
No, yeah, I get that fear. Well, I think anytime, like we kind of touched on this already, but when you build a library, to figure out how to monetize is hard. And us being software developers, at least in my case, making money is the hardest part. Building the product is really easy. And so
I think that was a good point to share some new. Maybe we should not save it till the end, all of it, because what good is that? Maybe give a little party in the middle. So we do have a change. We do have news that we're working towards. It's not ready. We're not rolling it out right now. I'm gonna let you.
So we started by monetizing Oban with web, and then when we learned about so much more advanced kind of stuff, then we shifted toward pro. And then more recently, we've also added enterprise, which is really just for large companies that want multiple pro licenses and extra levels of support. But for the growth of Oban and the growth of Elixir, the dashboard is actually very important. And so we're working towards actually open sourcing Oban Web so that it's free and open and everybody can use it.
That's where your sound effect comes in.
What? I know. Or like clapping, like that's amazing. I love that. So people are going to be stoked.
Working towards.
Yeah.
That's the spicy release for you.
That is. Wow. I'm honored. People are going to be stoked.
So we're working towards that right now. It will come with some live training. So that will be open sourced, and then we'll do live training that is behind a minor paywall to make sure people are invested in being there, our time. We'll test it that way, but that's the idea behind it. And that's for open source and web and pro.
I love that. I think like a training behind a paywall kind of thing, it's a good creative way too, to still offer an amazing open source product and, at least monetize it slightly.
Yeah, we have done video pairing with people who have web and have been using web for a while, and then trying to walk through and like just troubleshoot things with them, and they didn't even realize certain things were possible or were even buttons. So we kind of mean like open and pro training, but actually a little bit of like being able to use web as part of that. For now, you stand this up and then you can go in and diagnose like that.
Truly
it's a
grasp
nice
its capabilities.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Very cool. So I know you guys. Oh, I don't know if I want to call you out on this, but I think we already talked about this, but the social media, you guys aren't the biggest fans of being wired in and always on social media, but I feel like you do get a lot of awesome tweets out and posts. So what is your balance? When do you decide to pick up the phone and post about a new Oban feature or, kind of engage with the Elixir community? What is your balance there? Because I do feel like you're very involved in the Elixir community, especially on X. So how do you balance that?
We made an effort for more in person. We're trying to drive that in person, get up, come be there, come meet people who have things that are in common, that aren't scary for you to talk about, and be social on a minimal level. It's hard for me. He has a prescription for my social anxiety that works very well. However, I feel like we should just shh about that. However,
Medicine's not for sale.
yeah, it's not for sale, right? Limited time only. However, I think we pushed big. We weren't inclined to do in person, and we've really made an effort to do that. Elixir Comp US, that's been in Orlando, and Elixir Comp EU has been it's been wonderful experiences for us. I would recommend anybody who hasn't attended to attend. And
But that's the social. That's not the social media.
Yeah, but that was harder for us than sitting in an Airstream or on the road. When we do want to communicate with people and talk about what we're releasing or what's happening, Mastodon's great, but we're not going to reach the people that use us and need us and want to know.
I mean, if you want outreach, the Elixir community, for I think mostly historic reasons, because of like the Ruby background and the old DHH days. I don't know exactly why, but so many of the people are on X. So we know that we want something to reach an audience, or we want something to hopefully be on a Thinking Elixir or in the news. That's kind of where it has to go. So we do purposefully try to tease out things that we're working on. We take a lot from the way that Jose has done things in the past. Like if you look at the original NX announcement and the performance and building a little bit of hype and then actually kind of releasing things, it's been a learning experience for us to be able to do that.
We tend to release news, though, if possible, in person, such as being on your wonderful live stream or at Elixir Conf when we made our training.
That's true.
Open and live. We decided to do that before a keynote.
Okay, nice. Do you like to plan around conferences or talks that you do for major releases then?
We like to have something more. There was, for a long time, we were asked, what are you doing for the community? What's going on? And I felt like there was a gap, because as much as we do try to do for the community, we're doing that in a very verb action sense, and sharing it becomes complicated. So being able to organize that and share that with people, like our projects or releasing something like this, it's good for you. It's good for us. It's something that is tangible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I can't say I love that. Someone called me out on it for a couple podcast episodes ago, and they say that I say it too much. So
somebody called me out for saying
you're chuffed to bits.
Yeah. Well,
you could be chuffed.
Jim Freeze called us out for that. I said bespoke twice in a single meeting, and somebody called me out. It's like, Parker keeps saying bespoke.
That's because I find it sexy. I like it when you say it.
Oh, now we know the deep roots behind bespoke.
Yeah. So they're not going to stop me.
Yeah, they're not rolling that back. That's yours.
But
we have to end this.
It happens.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then all you think about it, and then you just keep saying it too now. But yeah. All right. When you approach documentation, is it something that is an afterthought, or do you write it alongside your features?
Sometimes before.
Okay. That's impressive.
Yeah, which that's the dream.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work, but sometimes before.
It's like like test-driven development, but with documentation.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's
another thing.
Those are magic words.
Kind of borrowed from Jose, I believe, for some bigger things. Is try to think out exactly how this is supposed to work. It doesn't always work. Sometimes you're spiking things, but
yeah.
We try to collaborate while it's being developed, and sometimes we have to go back in, or we forget to go back in.
Yeah, like the thing you fixed yesterday.
The docs.
I think that's the biggest problem with a lot of people in documentation, right? They always say, "Oh, we'll get to it," and then it's something that's ignored, and then you have crappy documentation. I'm guilty of it. I'm trying to bring test-driven development back into my life a little more strictly, and like documentation, actually having a plan for documentation is just a very smart move, I think, when you're developing a product.
Well, you've said it, So
Yeah.
you're going to do it. I believe you. I believe in you.
And in simpler cases, you can mix those. You could write the documentation and do the doc test version of it, so you can test.
Oh
drive
yeah, there we go.
function with the
I mean,
doc
I
test.
do like doc tests are like the coolest thing ever. Like if I were to talk about my favorite Elixir feature, it's doc tests.
Sadly,
like
they
it
don't
too.
work with a database-driven background process.
No.
But it doesn't work very well.
It's a no-go.
Dang it. But yeah, I love them. And I remember when I discovered them, I didn't understand, like I was trying to figure out X unit and everything. And I was like, what is this doc test thing? And then when I discovered it was actually running the documentation on, what the template, like the first .ex file that's created when you create an Elixir project, it was a game changer. I was like, my life has changed. But yeah, I love doc tests. I should, I need to make some more. I do owe my YouTube channel tutorial videos. I've been ignoring my channel for the last couple weeks, but it's hard to balance. It's hard to balance between, free work and paid work. So sometimes the day job.
That's why you have to try to make the free work the paid work sometimes.
Yeah.
A little bit. But I would say if you're starting out, even if you're coming into a language or you're getting started, doing open source is great for just learning how projects work, how to even build all of that. How do I ship packages? How do I write documentation? How do I collaborate with other people? What's expected for type specs and all these other things that you don't necessarily learn in school. Well, you definitely don't learn in school.
I'll learn best practices in school.
And you probably aren't even going to learn working with a team on an application. You're not writing docs a lot of the time. You're not writing type specs. You're not writing things with a library mentality where it's like, this has to handle all of these edge cases. I want to write a property test for this because I want it to be bulletproof. So even if you're not being paid, there's so much to learn, and just make sure that you have something to point to show, like, I have these skills. Come look at what I've done.
Yeah, software development being like when you're a single developer moving to or being organized with a team and like using Git properly, handling merge conflicts. These are things you don't learn until you're in a real world situation. You're maybe at your first dev job or open source. And then also just reading open source projects, like reading the source code, like you were saying, like that's it. It'll be the best thing that you ever do. Like you'll learn so much. Like whenever I want to feel like I'm a horrible developer, I go and read someone's source code and I'm like, yep, I still am a horrible developer. But you learn so much when you look at how people structure their projects. No, it's not like a sad thing. I don't think I'm actually a horrible developer, but you learn a lot when you read other people's code.
You totally do. There's sort of a funny irony of Oban versus Open Pro. Open is open source, and Open Pro, of course, is closed source. But it's Elixir, so we ship source code. We don't ship Beam files or anything.
Yeah.
I think more people end up reading Open Pro code than Open code, just because now they have it and they want to see it. So
also has to be removed when it's posted.
That too.
Which is a super fun thing to track down.
But for when people are looking at it, it's like, you're selling something. You want it to be as polished and professional. So on the one hand, something is out under the light of the sun and could be scrutinized. On the other hand, it's kind of private, but would be probably even more scrutinized.
It's very private.
Yes.
Yeah, when people pay for a license, it's much more scrutinized, right? How do you control, like I'm curious because I'm considering, or I'm kind of working towards like an agency project where I'll ship my source code to, clients. How do you protect your source code? Is it just all through licensing, or how do you approach that?
Don't skimp on legal.
Yeah, that's good advice right there.
For real.
That's the back of the shirt that she has that says "Read the docs." It says "Don't skimp on legal."
True. I never thought I would attend contract law courses, and when we started working together,
Yeah.
I put a priority on it and went through a series of contract law courses, as well as hiring our attorneys and working with them. And if you think you have something, we've begun a patent process, which is extensive. You initiate a patent process. Patent trolls are out there. They're not. The sea is not full of them, but they are out there, and you protect yourself, and you decide what you're going to do, and you make that legal term at the bottom so that everybody who's passed through, who purchases Oban Pro or Oban Pro Web or just web, just them passing through that pay portal is them agreeing to those terms. And the benefit of a community like being in the Elixir community is that we don't have an issue with addressing things on a forum, because we can moderate or get in touch with them and remove things. But that legal aspect is enormous. You want to make sure that you already have that automatic copyright, but how do you protect it? The amount of money you would spend to protect it is unbelievable. So you have to have those terms there with the idea that someday you might need to do that. And we have.
And you could get into an arms race with obfuscation or something else, but that's not going to actually deter somebody in the end. So we've just optimized for trust so that people can look at the code. They know what it's doing. They trust us. And then that actually ends up helping with our ability to help them to, they can say, I'm getting an error at this place and it looks like it's doing this. And then we can actually bug fix something, which if we were shipping some obfuscated precompiled kind of thing, we wouldn't have that. And somebody could still just take it or decompile it or do something else with
Reverse
it. So,
engineer it.
got to go a little bit on trusting the people that are going to pay you, and then a bit on the legal side.
And his perspective is trust. I would say my perspective is not trust. Mine is not causing other developers pain. I feel like it should be an easy solution for you to look over our documentation. You should see that, how many open issues do they have? Oh, none. That's great. I want this. I'm going to pull this dependency in. I'm going to make this pitch to my finance director. I'm going to go I'm the head of engineering, or I'm going to go to the head of engineering and I'm going to justify this. The idea is not to cause other developers pain, because that's fundamentally who we are. Them choosing this dependency.
They're your advocates.
We want them to feel empowered and advocate for us, because truly that's why we get to do what we do when we want to do it. Yeah. But that comes with you're standing guard. You really are standing there with the idea that you stand behind your terms, and if somebody violates those terms, you'll go to the community and say, hey, you need to take this down. Hey, I'm sending a letter. That's real. You have to be prepared for that, because this is art. It's code. Elixir is elegant. It's art. It's independent. It's individual. It's original work. And for somebody to do that and take your work, it feels like an enormous violation. It's personal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very poetic.
It is. Don't steal my code. Well, I always
then I'll get angry.
Yeah. You don't want to see that, guys. Your legal email, cease and desist. But
I'm a fan of Ukrainian lawyers. That's what I have to say. Tough as nails.
I never even really thought about that too. Like, software is so easily like a global thing. It's very difficult to probably keep reins on it.
It is, but in a community like Elixir, where that person is going to try to violate or open that up, the channels that you use to shut that down, they're pretty limited.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. I do like
if we were talking about Open Python, right? If We're talking about that, which one day will be a thing. If we're going into that,
It's phase 2 of
phase
Project
2,
Rhododendron.
Project Rhododendron. Phase 2 is Oban Python. If we're talking about that, then you love your lawyers in India. You love lots of lawyers. You're thin-skinned.
Yeah. Everything that developers don't want to have to deal with, you have to deal with when you have a cool product.
It does feel so personal too. I think people really underestimate the personal toll that it takes.
Yeah. Well, so I have like paid courses and things like that. And I actually got involved in software. And the first startup I was a part of was a learn to code platform. And we were dealing with, stolen videos all the time from, anything on web you get behind the paywall, you can record it from the browser, right? So you get all your copyrighted material stolen. And I used to take it so personally. And you kind of you can't care too much because at the same time, the people stealing your content were never your paying customer to begin with. And your true supporters and your tribe aren't going to steal your stuff. And that's kind of the approach I kind of learned during that. And I'm glad it was the first thing I was involved with in tech because I took things very personally at first.
I think we reinforce certain beliefs to each other too, that the people who are the ones that are going to steal from you, they're never the ones that are going to get ahead. Anybody who solves a need or a problem this way, they're not going to think around it in the same way that we would. So we bolster ourselves by that ability.
And we learned
to think ahead, to just keep rethinking it and readdressing it.
And we learned very quickly, free trials are a very bad idea for software, because you'd have say free trial, 6 days in, cancel. It's like, I just don't,
they're not our customer anyway.
They're not our customer. So, and then also if you have a low price point, it kind of makes it easier for people to do what we call drive-bys. So that encourages a more reasonable deterrent sort of price point.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the free trial is an interesting thing because you want people to try your product out, but at the same time, are they just trying to get their hands on source code for a brief period of time? And like, especially in your situation where it's a library, you can't really you can't take it back.
Yeah.
Well, they'll have that.
We've thought about how.
We have definitely gone back and forth about how we would do this, and I don't know how you feel about it, but phoning home is never something if somebody doesn't
so much more harm than good,
and you find out that this is what's happening. We're not living in 1995. Parker nor I want to show up with a clipboard and audit software digitally or in person. It's not. But we have discussed whether or not we should put a phone home in there, or we do hesitate from making breaking changes, but we would do it. And once your license is revoked, which we've never had to do that, but if there was a violation and we revoked a license, or if somebody, say, stole it, we definitely have run through the channels on how we would address that.
It's good to be prepared.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right. At a certain point, it won't work. Versions are versions. And if you're the type of person who's going to just slide something in and think that you'll keep it that way for free forever, I mean, there are lots of Department of Justice buildings that still have floppy drives. Good on them. Enjoy. We'll keep going.
Yeah.
It's got really dark. This whole conversation just turned to.
We're smiling.
Yeah. We just got to smile through the theft of source code and material. But yeah, it's definitely a difficult situation to control if you can at all, honestly. So
people who steal are not adding exciting features, right? We're all about adding features and optimization. That's what we jive on.
Oh, there's nothing better than when you make something, especially because it's database backed. It's like now it's 100 times faster for
Hey,
everybody, just like that.
We have 4 release candidates out right now, soon to be 5. So
Of Pro 1.5, yeah.
right. So, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So these new features are great. Really jiving on that.
That's awesome. Can we talk about them at all?
Sure.
Oh, they're out.
So
We're encouraging everybody to use the release candidate.
Okay.
But it's just there's enough changed in there that it was worthy of a release candidate.
Yeah.
We want everybody to try it out.
you can talk about the one that we haven't. We've got 4 out. You want to talk about what?
There are no new features in the new one. It's
And
just bug
5?
fixes. Yeah.
Okay. Unexciting bug fixes. No, but everyone's a fan of bug fixes, especially if the bug's affecting you. So that's exciting.
Oh, totally. Yeah. But there's big things in 1.5. You want to, what was your favorite?
Oh, cron management.
What?
That's what I'm thinking for web. That's coming next. That's where my head is at.
Okay. Yeah, that one's next. But for 1.5 decorators, I thought you were going to say decorators.
Yeah, I do like decorators, but I talk about it all the time.
So you're just over it.
Yeah.
No, it's a slice of really elegant code. It was a huge thing during our release week. I was very excited about it. You add an annotation and the function is async and you can just retry it. You just go with it. It sounds very simple, but it's so elegant. And I think we built it up a fair bit for our release week.
Yeah, we probably did. But I think that was
I'm not saying I moved on and I'm over it.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like you're moved
No,
on.
I
and you're
love it,
over
baby.
Like
In my
decorators,
mind, I
who
was
cares?
thinking No, I think it's great. Our release week was a big week for us.
Yeah.
So I would say that's my favorite. What's your favorite?
All right, this is going to be, I don't know if it's boring, but unique jobs have been kind of one of the more interesting features of Oban for a long time. And the way that uniqueness works in open source and the way that it used to work in Pro was essentially it composes a query, it takes a lock for that particular query, it tries to see if that job exists, and then if it doesn't, then it does an insert. And you can imagine when you're talking to a database, that's like a lot of backgroundy kind of stuff, not the fastest. And so what we've ended up doing in 1.5 is there is a very custom partial unique index that it uses so that it doesn't have to take an advisory lock. It doesn't have to do multiple queries. It's safe between transactions. You don't have any possible race conditions. You can do bulk inserts without any. So it's something that a lot of people reach for uniqueness, and it becomes kind of sometimes a performance bottleneck. And it's just great to say, no, you just upgrade, you run this migration, and now it works differently, and it's faster, and it's safer, and so that's just a win all around.
Yeah, optimizations like that are always very exciting. I think probably more exciting for the developer that did it, but it's exciting because you don't want bottlenecks in any of your
That's true.
tasks. But
Yep, high five.
See, it's instant. That's
Gotta get the high five.
when you're sitting next to each other and you hit a moment where something like that works and it passes, you don't even look, you just go like wham.
yeah. So do the two of you just like code jam next to each other all day long? Always within high five range? Because that's what I imagine.
Not always. Then I don't want to ruin
Sometimes you have to go running for the high five. You have to go track down the person.
He will wait until I come over if I'm somewhere else. So we're not always sitting in the same spot because he has meetings, I have meetings, not always together. Usually together, but for us, for Oban, they're together. For him, not always the case. So if I see him like this, or if he sees me like that, then it's instinctual. You have to run over and do it.
Yeah, of
But
course.
I don't want to ruin your fantasy. We are sitting next to each other.
Headphones on, just, dark background,
Yeah.
like the hacker movies.
Yeah.
Parker's in
We're
a
playing
full.
footsie.
He's in a full vinyl bodysuit.
Whoa.
Oh wow, yeah. This took a turn. This is a Friday. This is a Friday podcast.
It's
Yeah.
Friday. It's Halloween. It's the spooky podcast.
There we go. That's right. All right. What advice would you give developers that aren't using Oban or Oban? I keep wanting to say Oban. I like to because that's the Midwestern in me. But
Yeah. Wait till a Texan gets a hold of it.
I love the way Jen Free says it. I never, ever will correct it because we understand it, but it is one of my
we know what
favorite
he's saying.
things to hear.
But no matter how many times we say it differently, it still comes back the same
My
way.
favorite. I'm keeping it. I'm keeping Jen Free saying it like that.
he says Oban.
Oban. Yeah. Got to draw out the A too. It's like
Yeah,
a sharp draw.
Oban. So what advice do you have for developers that aren't using it, and why should they use it or consider using it? And then also common pitfalls to avoid as a new developer implementing Oban.
Why should they use it? If you're if you're doing things that are asynchronous, web app or other, and you care about whether or not those end up happening. So if it's a side effect like sending an email, generating something, I don't know. There are so many possibilities where you want to make sure that it actually happens.
That your transaction is safe and it's isolated.
Transactionally, you want to know that it happens. You want to know that there's a possibility for a retry. You want to be able to control when it retries. You want to see what the errors are. You want logs of the things that are happening. All of the things that you would have to build on top of the beautiful OTP and Elixir stuff you have, then consider using Oban because that's what it provides.
Yeah, I love it. So if you have a task that can fail, but you need to know if it fails, Oban.
Yeah.
That's very well done.
Yeah. And for common pitfalls, I think we sort of touched on one is unique is not free. Don't just go throwing it on everything. And most things probably don't need to be unique.
Yeah. Don't overuse unique jobs. If you know what it is and you're starting to insert and use, do not overuse unique jobs.
All right. Awesome.
Configuring partial states for uniqueness. Big.
Oh, and before we jumped on to, you mentioned doing a giveaway. And
yes.
So this is really cool. They have Oban swag, awesome sweatshirts, and they have 3 to give away to Elixir Mentor audience members. And I still don't know the best way, but I think I kind of have a good, yeah, they're so cool. So you guys can get a free hoodie. And I think I know how I'm going to do it. So we're streaming live on X, Twitch, and YouTube. And anyone on X, I think if you retweet the stream and you tag Soren2 and Elixir Mentor and say like Oban swag, that's what the repost needs to say. With us being tagged, the first 3 people that do it will get the free sweatshirt. And then I'll reach out to you guys and we'll get all the shipping information. But
perfect.
Excellent.
It's awesome. I'm stoked. Everyone loves tech swag. So like that's the whole reason to go to conferences, right? You just get swag.
Well, if they don't, it doesn't, I mean, if you didn't know what it was, it's just kind of a comfortable hoodie. Shannon gives them to friends and stuff. And so it's funny to just see.
They want them. They see them. And
see a friend with an Oban hoodie.
They don't get these hoodies. They get a shirt.
That's true. Oh, okay.
So the hoodies are coveted. So if you do enter into our little ruse for your swag, you will have a coveted piece of swag.
Yes. And what's nice is I love the front zip hoodies over the pullovers. So it's definitely a big bonus right there.
Yeah. And there's like a set off kind of color. It's like the tuxedo of hoodies.
And we will have some. We're putting together a live event in the UK in January.
Last bit of news there.
Yeah. The last bit of news, if I'm allowed to share that. We're putting together a live event.
You're asking me? Go for
Yeah. The last bit of January, date to be decided. We're thinking that 20th kind of week of January, we're putting together a live event that we're trying to figure it out. The streaming this week is kind of,
Yeah.
we wanted to stream it. We'll reach out to you and see what you think about it, but we want to make it digitally accessible for people who can't be in the UK. But for anybody who's listening in the UK, please watch for our post. And if you're there and you want to come listen to some talks and see us, we'd love to see you.
And
Awesome.
yeah, we have verbals from some potentially very good speakers. So
I love that.
I don't want to ruin the
that's
night.
all I'm saying.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And yeah, I'm more than happy to help you figure out streaming or whatever you want to do with the event. That sounds like a lot of fun. All right, to close off, by the way, I appreciate you guys coming on so much. It's been awesome chatting and meeting you today. What is one thing you wish more people knew about Oban? And then what is the favorite thing about working with Elixir? And you each have to answer.
Oh,
All right. So one thing I wish more people knew about Oban would be pronunciation.
Oban?
you touched on that. Yeah.
But I love it. I don't want anyone to change. Just like we've heard people say Jose, Valim, and Sacha, or maybe Andreas.
Oh, I butcher everyone's names on here. It's horrible.
Jimenez. I feel like,
Just be pleased that they're saying it.
Oban, Leopardi, Jose, all these things. We're a massive community of people from everywhere. And I love Sasha. I'm sure his name gets just annihilated. So
I'm probably
that's
one
it
of
for
them.
me.
Okay, but you have to answer the second part, which is favorite thing about Elixir,
Ooh.
about working with Elixir.
Runtime domination.
Okay.
The runtime domination in Elixir is a beast.
All right, so I'll back in and say that we actually our talk at ElixirConf US was about our concurrency superpowers, meaning not our personal ones, but like Elixir's concurrency superpowers, which ended up kind of turning into like a history lesson about concurrency from the 1950s all the way up until now, and how those things have all combined into the runtime that is Erlang and Elixir, and how nothing else can really replicate that, which is the runtime domination that she's referencing that we enjoy so much.
Awesome.
And then,
Thank you for translating.
yeah, I just wanted to add that little
I
context.
spend most of my life trying to entertain you.
Yes, which I encourage.
How did that work? Did I get a
I'm
little
highly
TikTok
entertained.
thing from
Yep.
it? All right.
One thing I wish more people knew about Oban, I don't know. I wish.
Pass.
Yes, can I pass on that?
Sure. I mean, we did
do
just
whatever
talk
you
an
want.
hour
You're
and a
wearing
half
the hat.
about all of it. So if they didn't know what it
Yes, I
was
want everything
today,
there.
now they do.
I punted.
Yeah.
I had a total BS answer.
I want people to read all of the documentation, including the type specs, and then
reach out.
No. I mean,
Yeah, it's a 2-person team. Honestly, that's impressive because tech support's hard. It takes a lot of time. So I'm impressed.
it is.
it's grown. That's grown.
Yeah.
We do. So our primary support channel is the Elixir forum, and then secondary, we've done a lot with Elixir Slack. We've been on the Elixir Slack for
Okay.
a long time, and I think there are 13. I don't know how many hundred people are in there, but so that's
1,600.
1,600. So that stays
1,700.
fairly busy.
1 second, guys. I
but
think the stream can still hear you, but I can't. Okay, now it's back. So weird.
We can hear you.
Okay,
That's-
good.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think
We
everyone
have
could
almost
still hear you.
1,700 people in that channel.
But what's beautiful is when people step in, like, we're just busy or we don't get back to something, and then you have certain people who have decided.
There are superstars who have read the documentation, who have optimized Oban within their entities, especially the pro users. We have people like Milton and Ben and both Bens or Lost Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
We have people who really understand the intricacies, who are not bashful and step in, and we we appreciate them on many levels.
Yeah, people like that in a community are always lifesavers, and you appreciate them around. But
Absolutely.
all right, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll have to do this again. So if you ever have a new feature you want to come on, just reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to have you be repeat guests as many times as you want. And I hope everyone that tuned in has a good weekend, and thank you for hanging out with us. Have a good weekend, guys.